This is Chris, the Idaho Cyclist, bringing you another how-to video on how to operate and maintain your bicycle. This is Chris, the Idaho Cyclist. In this video, we're going to show you how to remove a front and rear wheel that have quick release skewers. And then we've got a bike here, and we got a set of wheels. We've got a quick release skewer on the front. We've got a quick release skewer on the back. And to remove these skewers, all you got to do is grab this thing. Sometimes they're on pretty tight, sometimes they're on a little bit looser, but if you get your hands behind the skewer and lift that skewer out, and it's going to release the skewer itself so the wheel can drop out. Now if the wheel don't drop out, on the back side here, there's the other nut, and you got to just release that nut, start unscrewing it, and the wheel will eventually fall out. So there's this nut on the back side. The wheel doesn't fall out, you just got to loosen that nut to get it to fall out. And sometimes the reason why it won't fall out, on most bikes, there's a little tab, and it's a safety tab right there. So if you're riding and your skewer comes loose, or you forgot to tighten your skewer, that this front wheel actually won't come off while you're actually riding and cause a serious accident. This little tab right here, we sometimes refer to that as lawyer tabs. In bicycle racing, a lot of bicycle racers actually take a file, some sort of file like this, and they'll actually file that tab down and get rid of that tab, so if they get a flat in a race, when they release that quick release skewer, the front wheel will drop out instantly, so they can change over to another wheel coming out of what we have as a wheel car, a neutral car in the back, and then they can actually get back into the race a lot faster. Those lawyer tabs make it a little bit slower to actually release the wheel and get a flat tire change. So to put the wheel back on, just going to have this skewer here, just slide it up, and you want to slide it in between your brakes. If it doesn't go in between your brakes easily, you want to just take your quick release lever on your brakes, release it up, and it'll make it a little bit easier for your wheel to slide in. We're just going to take that wheel, slide it up. Now we're going to take and position our skewer so it's not in the way of the fork. If it's actually straight up and down the fork, it's actually a little bit harder to get the skewer off when you're changing a flat. So I like to have it a little bit down to the side. And so you've got to tighten this nut in the back. You want to get it tight enough to where that skewer will start to engage about midway, and where it starts to get snug, and then you're going to just tighten that skewer down. And if it needs to be a little bit snugger, just release it, turn that back nut a quarter turn or so, and then tighten it again. And that's how you put the front wheel back on. The rear wheel on the rear wheel, you're going to want to take your shifter, your right shifter, and you're going to shift it, turn your crank, and get it all the way down into the smallest cog in the back, which is what we call the highest gear. Get it all the way down to the highest gear, and it makes it so the wheel will drop out a lot easier. So get that chain all the way down to the smallest cog. Now you can take the skewer, lift it up, release it, and now the wheel will just fall out, just like that. And to get that wheel back in, you're going to take that wheel and put it back in just the way you got it out. And this chain, you're going to have to pull this chain down just slightly to get it around the rear cog, and it's going to slide up. It'll go right back in place. It'll just actually jump right up into your rear dropout. Now you can rear tighten it. The rear wheel doesn't have what we call the lawyer tabs on the back, and it'll actually just drop right out. Now we'll turn the bike around, and we'll show you what that looks like from the opposite direction. So when I get ready to release the skewer and drop my wheel out the back, make sure my brake release lever is up and actually spreads the brakes apart to make the wheel so it drops out a little bit easier. I'm going to take my skewer, release the skewer. Now the wheel will actually just fall right out. It just comes right out. Now you want to make sure when you drop that wheel out that prior to dropping it out, shift your shifter so it's all the way down into the smallest cog set. That makes the wheel a lot easier to get off and get back on. When you go to put the wheel back on, just drop this part of the chain down, put it over onto your first cog, and then it'll just pop right back up in, and then tighten up the skewer. The skewer should engage about midway through. If it doesn't engage midway through, you're just going to take this nut and you're going to use this nut to tighten it or loosen it to get that skewer engaged midway through. Tighten it, and now you got your rear wheel installed. Now we're going to do a front wheel, and we'll show you from the opposite direction. So I've got my skewer on the opposite side. Make sure my quick release lever is up in the engaged position. I'm going to pop my skewer loose. I'm going to turn it a few times because of our lower tab. You're going to turn this nut a few times so it'll drop down the lower tab. Now the wheel is out. Put it back in. Just going to slide that wheel up in between the brakes. And because we had to loosen up the nut a little bit, we're going to tighten it back up until we get the skewer engaged about midway through, and then tighten it up. And now you want to check to make sure your wheel is lined properly. You're going to reset your brakes so your tabs are down, and then your wheels are reinstalled. Now once our wheels are reinstalled, if you're on the road, it's a good idea to take and just make sure these wheels, they'll self-align themselves. If you're standing over the bike, just make, and it'll line itself up. Now just adjust the quick release skewer to make sure the wheels are lined. The bike is down. Release the skewer, tighten it back up, put a little bit of pressure on the seat, and that actually aligns the wheels. Check for proper alignment. Spin the wheel, make sure it spins and it's not touching your brakes. Bike is ready to go. After you fix the flat, always make sure you check your wheels, make sure they spin freely and are not touching your brakes.